Funding for Frontline is provided by the Park Foundation, committed to raising public awareness. With additional funding for this program from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
They are schizophrenic.
Tried to kill myself about 17 times.
Paranoid.
This is a plot by the government.
And psychotic.
Thorazine me out, leave me for lost.
But they are not in mental hospitals. They are in prison.
Prisons have become the new asylums, the new state mental hospital facilities.
Tonight, Frontline takes an unprecedented journey inside one of America's largest prison systems.
Once they get out of control, you do have to use force on them.
And investigates the stark reality of locking thousands of the mentally ill behind bars.
The attitude has been, lock people away, then they're no longer a problem.
Prison is simply not the place to provide mental health care.
Why have America's prisons become the new asylums?
You know, I didn't get your name. My name's Alex. What's yours?
Jesse Paulette from Cordala. On the other side, 3 courses, 450 degrees, molecule 3175 away from Lupa.
Okay. Are you giving me directions?
Yeah, I'm giving you 5 of this.
Okay.
Hey, Devon.
Yeah.
Are you on medications that you haven't taken today?
Yes.
Yes, you did, or
no? I did not take.
Are you out of them?
Yes, I am.
What apartment do you live in?
Apartment 18.
Apartment 18.
Yes, 1-8.
Very good.
Who do you live there with?
I stayed there by myself.
Okay. Do you have a phone at your house?
No.
Okay. If something happened where you need to get hold of family in an emergency,
yes,
who would you call?
I would call nobody really. I don't have any family right now.
Do you have a brother or a sister or a mother or father?
No, I do not.
An aunt or an uncle that may be able to help you today?
No.
Where are you from? What city?
I'm from, I don't know, brother.
Scenes like this have become all too familiar throughout America. As the nation's psychiatric hospitals shut down, police departments everywhere were left to handle the growing number of mentally ill on the streets.
Watch your head! I can't let you in. You guys are going to kill me and all that. She thought we was going to kill her. What's your name, sir?
Why'd she think that?
You know she's crazy.
Husband was going to offer meds. So you guys just going to do a voluntary thing tonight? Yeah. She said to go. She wants to go.
Once you had hundreds of thousands of people leaving the mental hospitals, they suddenly, obviously, didn't become mentally healthy. They went to the streets, they became homeless, and then they eventually began to cycle into the system that cannot say no.
Have you ever considered or attempted suicide? No. Do you plan to harm yourself now or while you're incarcerated?
Well, most of them are nonviolent crimes. They're crimes against property, the petty theft out of the local 7-Eleven store, or even a criminal trespass. A person with a mental issue goes in there to try and get shelter from the elements outside, and they start acting up. And the property owner, calls the police, and then as soon as the police step in, they end up bringing them to jail, and here we go.
Hallelujah! Praise God!
Today, there are nearly 500,000 mentally ill being held in jails and prisons throughout America. That's 10 times the 50,000 that remain in psychiatric hospitals.
I want to see the doctor to get my meds. Get out of my face, you filthy bitch.
This massive incarceration of inmates with severe mental illness has created enormous problems for prisons across the country.
There was a failure in society. There was no safety net for all of these persons who were no longer being treated by mental health agencies, and as a result, many of those persons who would have been in state hospitals are now in state prisons. So in addition to being the director of the Department of Corrections, I became a de facto director of a major mental health system.
Ohio corrections officials agreed to give Frontline unprecedented access to their prison system to see firsthand the difficulties of coping with the thousands of mentally ill inmates in their custody.
Just feel like I'm suffering, man. I feel like I'm suffering every day. I just feel like I'm suffering. I feel like I'm just in a locked, a real small locked room. And no matter how much I kick on the door, no matter how much I scream, man, don't nobody hear me, man.
What about you, Mr. Simmons?
They say I'm paranoid schizophrenic.
Are you on forced medication?
Yeah.
What medications are you on?
This is group therapy at the maximum security prison in Lucasville, Ohio.
Didn't like a lot of things I've seen in my childhood, a lot of things I've seen in my household. Start having hate inside of me.
Come here, man. Let me see your arms. Bring me here. I haven't got to see it. What's new? All these? These?
Yeah.
What's this? This new?
Yeah.
What drove you to this point, man? Last time I seen you was doing good.
The bottom dropped out. And I just couldn't think of nothing else.
16% of our prison population in the state of Ohio, which reflects basically a national average, are persons who've been diagnosed with a mental illness, which means that they require an awful lot of attention. Many of them require hospitalization. They require major regimens of psychiatric medications. And they are a population that would be at risk not only in the institutions, but when they leave the confines of our correctional facilities.
Ohio spent the last decade reforming their system and is now considered a model for providing mental health care behind bars.
I said, how? Can we get a witness? Can we hear the Bible verse up there, Reverend Jack Black?
We've had inmates bang his head on the wall, scream, shout, yell, kicking the doors, kicking the bars. That go on forever. Throwing human waste on the range, that's something that happens regular. And if somebody new that would come in here and experience something like that, they'd probably turn right back around and leave. Say, I don't want to come back in this place. But, you get used to it after a while.
In Ohio, mentally ill inmates are separated from the prison's general population and housed in mental health units where they can be treated.
You have to have a little more patience here. You have to have a lot more patience here, not a little, because it gets pretty frustrating at times. Have to tell somebody to do something 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they do it. A lot of them simply don't understand the rules. If they're paranoid about something, they think somebody's out to get them. It's just a different world in here than it is in the rest of the prison. This is another world inside the world.
You have this population of seriously mentally ill, and simply keeping them locked up isn't going to do any good for the inmates themselves or for the prison. So you bring the treatment part of it into it, and maybe this is the first time some of these guys have received treatment. We have medication here, we have the psychiatrist here, we have nurses here 24 hours a day, and some of the guys here probably have not had that level of care, maybe not ever in their lives.
Now, you haven't heard voices.
No.
But you do have some special abilities, right?
Yeah, mental telepathy.
Yeah, which is different than voices.
Yeah, it's a lot different, a lot more friendlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who's the main person that you have telepathy with?
The main one is Miss Hillary Clinton now, and then the next one is George Bush. Then I talk to Miss Oprah Winfrey sometime.
How is she friendly to you?
It's the power builder of my all well-being.
We've projected about 25 or 30% of those individuals that have a chronic mental illness will always need someone making sure that they take their medication, having somebody mediate in terms of interpersonal relationships that they might have with staff as well as have with other inmates, having a population or environment where people understand that illness and yet keep in mind what the security needs are.
DRC, and I'll say what the I want out of my goddamn mouth for any one of you bitch motherfuckers, and I'll rape all you bitches, you every goddamn one of them. I'll rape your wife, Timothy Snapper, I'll rape your wife, all you bitches. And you know about raping blind, and you really talk about the
You want your light on?
What?
You want your light on?
Yeah, I want that bitch. Do not with it. You know about you
Is this what you wanted me to have?
Look at it.
Okay.
Look over.
And this is what we've been talking about on numerous occasions. You want PC because you don't feel safe.
Benny Anthony, a paranoid schizophrenic, has spent much of his life in and out of psychiatric hospitals. In 1987, within weeks of being released, he had a paranoid episode and set his girlfriend's house on fire.
Protective custody, I will feel comfortable.
But you're kind of like in protective custody, remember? We discussed this, Mr. Anthony.
So I'm on protective custody.
You're in your own cell.
I'm on protective custody.
All right.
I'm on protective custody. Because I'm scared.
Okay, and what are you afraid of? Do you want to
Anthony has believed for years that people are trying to kill him.
They was from Texas. It's coming out of Texas. Some of them have syringes of poison, electric battery powered volts on them where they can pierce your heart or your stomach. And some of them have wooden bats like, and guns.